So these are the quilting squares I will be using to create the baby blanket, and I have already laid them out on the floor in the pattern that I will be sewing them in. So they are already set up in the stack as how I will be stitching them together. And I took my fabric that had all the different characters on it, and I took my clear ruler and centered up the picture where I wanted it, and then measured a square around it. And then from that point I decided how many of the characters I had and put that into how long and how wide it would be, and then found out exactly how long and how wide it would be, which this one will be 40 inches long and 34 inches wide, which is perfect size for a crib blanket. So I've measured my squares out, and they come to 4 inches with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So I'm lining them up with the right sides together, and I'm going to stitch them together using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And I have the beginning of my quilt. And then from that point I will take my next block and put it with the right sides together and do another 1/4 inch. And then I have the beginnings of my quilt. Okay, so now I am actually tying, even though I backstitched, I am tying the ends together just to give it that added stability and ensure that it won't come apart through a lot of washing and ironing and pulling. So I have my squares all stitched together, and I am going to now iron the seams flat. So I'm going to open them up, and it's actually more pressing than ironing. Next one up. You're going to repeat this process until all of your seams are flat. Alright, so I have ironed my seams flat. Now I'm going to line up to stitch these two strips together. Because I have the characters, I'm going to make sure that the bottom one is upside down with right sides together on the top one. So that way when it unfolds, they will be right side up. And since this is such a long stitch that I'm going to be doing, I'm going to go ahead and pin along the edges. That way it just kind of stays together. So I have pinned my edges together, and now I'm going to stitch down the sides with the same 1/4 inch that I did in between. As I'm stitching, I'm going to try to keep the seams flat. Okay, so I've stitched down one side, and now I have to open it up. It looks like that. So what I'm going to do is flip it over and iron this seam flat. Sometimes getting the 4 seams to go down is a pain. I'm going to go back through and press on the 4 seams a little bit harder just to make sure that they stay down. So here I am at the halfway point of the baby blanket I've been working on. And as you can see, it's been getting bigger. And I've been going along and ironing the seams flat and making sure that the squares stay ironed, because I pressed the squares before I did it, but as I go, some of them do get wrinkled. So trying to make sure that they all stay squared up, and